Episode 111 this week, Q Who. Q Who, one of the most important episodes in the entire Star Trek universe, and probably the best episode by far of Season 2 of The Next Generation. This one kicks off in engineering. Geordi LaForge is talking to this brand new ensign, Sonia Gomez. She orders a hot chocolate at a food dispenser right next to all the equipment there in engineering, and Geordi LaForge is throwing this massive fit on how could anyone order a drink right there next to all that equipment. They installed the thing in there. It was designed to dispense food and drink. He wasn't mad at the people that designed it that way. He was mad at the ensign that used it. Didn't make much sense, but that's what happened. And so he's telling her to calm down and like she'll be fine, and she's telling him how much she's dreamed of being on the Enterprise, and it meant everything to her to be on the Enterprise, and now she's got the assignment. And then she tells him she'll take the drink away, drink it somewhere else before she spills it all over the equipment. And she turns right into Captain Picard, spills it all over him. LaForge and Sonia Gomez are for words. Captain Picard's mildly annoyed. Gomez keeps going on and on about how she'll serve the ship well. Picard's like, I'll just go change uniforms, I guess. Picard gets in the turbo lift, it opens up, and he's on a shuttlecraft. He can't figure out what happened, but he sees someone in the seat, so he asks, what's going on? It's Q. Q's in uniform, and Q wants to join the Enterprise crew. Picard doesn't want to hear of it. He doesn't want Q on his ship. He told Q he promised to leave him alone. But Q's like, well, look at this. We're far away from your ship. They'll never find you out here where I brought you. No, he and Picard are out in space somewhere, way far from the Enterprise. And then, aboard the Enterprise, Guinan gets this weird feeling like she's stomping Steve. And she calls the bridge, asks if everything's okay. Riker's like, you've never called the bridge before and everything's fine. And then they realize Captain Picard and the shuttlecraft's gone. So they stop the ship. They plan to do this massive search to find Picard. But aboard the shuttle, Q and Picard are bickering, and finally they decide they'll go back to the Enterprise and continue the discussion. So they go to 10 Forward of all places. Then Guinan pops out. She and Q see each other, start making weird gestures at one another. They give a really vague backstory that they never fully explored ever again, that they had known each other before, and they each called each other dangerous. But the gist is, Q wants to be part of the crew. Riker and Worf show up. Picard kicks Worf out right away before he gets in trouble. Riker stays just a brief more time, but they explain to Q they don't want him aboard. He can't offer anything of value. Q's like, I'm an omnipotent being that knows everything, and you don't want me? And they're like, nope, we're fine. So Q hurls the ship thousands and thousands of light years from its previous position and says, good luck. And they encounter the Borg. The planet they were near had been messed up just like the planets they were seeing earlier in the season, and where they teamed up with the Romulans. And now they see why. It's the Borg. The Borg had been getting closer and closer apparently. And the Borg puts the ship in a tractor beam. Picard has to fire everything at will after they lost 38 people, and the Borg was like ripping apart part of the whole of the Enterprise. They're all upset now. They can't believe what has happened. Gomez is inconsolable. LaForge is yelling at her to snap out of it so they can do what needs to be done and they can grieve later. They keep asking Guinan. Guinan says she knows all about the Borg, but not from first-hand experience, and they had wiped out her people, but she wasn't there at the time, so she can just offer vague, like, not even advice, but just vague statements. Picard sends Where like first they get a Borg aboard the ship. He goes to engineering. LaForge calls for the captain, Worf, and some more security guards. Picard's like, stop what you're doing. The Borg doesn't stop, so he tells Worf, go get him. Worf sends the ensign after the Borg. He stays put. So does the other security, and this ensign gets ran through like nothing. And the Worf's like, I know, I'll shoot my phaser from this safe distance. Not Worf like at all. It knocks the Borg out, but then another one appears, and he's already adjusted and has shields up to protect from the phaser. He gets what he needs. But after Picard like settles the thing with that, he sends an away team. Riker's thinking this is a great idea. Guinan was for words. But Riker, Data, and Worf go to the Borg ship, and everything's sort of at rest. The Borg ignore them because they didn't see them as a threat, so they look around. They discover a room where there's humanoid infants, and then they discover that later on they get their implants and become Borgified, different from how Borg were seen later in the series, but that's the first instance of it. They changed it later, of course. And finally, Picard tells Q, okay, you win. We're not prepared for every single thing in space we'll ever encounter, and we've got a lot to learn. So Q hurls them back to where they started, but now they're shaking in their collective boots because they've encountered the Borg, and they know the Borg will be coming after them, which of course they do later. Some interesting notes in this one. This was supposed to be the insectoid aliens that we first learned of in season 1, with Picard and Riker going to Starfleet headquarters and shooting the guy's head off and everything, and they got that message out, but because of the writer's strike they had to scrap that plan and go with slightly different variations, so we got the Borg. And of course the Borg changed quite a bit over the years and through different series, but this was the first instance of the Borg in Star Trek. You also got the debut of Sonia Gomez. She was apparently going to be a recurring character, but she only did one other appearance and then was gone up until the time of the animated show that came out just a few years ago. They had her pop up a couple of times in that, but no more live action appearances after just one more episode for Sonia Gomez. I guess they couldn't decide if she was going to be a love interest of Geordi LaForge or a comedic character or both or neither, so they just scrapped the whole thing altogether. Well, pretty much that's episode 111.